The body floated face down in the October current, uniform torn, blood threading dark ribbons through the water. Raymond Blake had seen dead things in this river before. Deer, dogs, once a bear cub, but never a cop. Never someone whose shoulders still moved with shallow breath. His 8-year-old son Caleb stood frozen on the bank, fishing rod slack in his hands, as Raymond waded in and dragged her to shore. She wasn't dead. Not yet. But when her eyes cracked open and her bloodied fingers clutched his jacket, the words she rasped made his stomach drop. "Don't call the police. They'll kill me." Then she went limp, a cop begging him not to call cops. Raymond looked at the badge half torn from her chest, at the bullet wound in her shoulder, at his son's wide, terrified eyes, and made a choice that would force the entire police force to ask a question they'd spent years avoiding. What if the man they destroyed 5 years ago had been right all along? The October sky had turned the color of old bruises when Raymond Blake pulled his truck to the river's edge that evening. Caleb gathered the fishing gear with the careful precision of a child who'd learned early that things break and fathers have no money to replace them. The cabin behind them sagged against the pines, warped boards, peeling paint, windows patched with cardboard. Raymond had built furniture for wealthy families once, crafted tables that cost more than his monthly rent. That was before the accusation, before the construction company let him go without trial. Before Iris got sick and the hospital bills piled up and her heart gave out in a room that smelled like bleach and broken promises. Now he built nothing. He fixed things, chainsaws, lawnmowers, whatever people brought him, and tried to keep Caleb fed and innocent of the fact that his father was the kind of man people crossed the street to avoid. They fished in comfortable quiet for nearly an hour when Caleb's rod jerked with dead weight. Raymond took the line and saw her, the dark shape rolling in the current, moving toward them like something the river had been saving. He dropped the rod and waded into water that bit through his jeans. Young, maybe 30, with dark hair plastered across her face and a hole in her shoulder still seeping blood. The uniform said police. The wound said someone wanted her dead. He dragged her to shore, checked for breathing. Faint. Pulse thready. He was about to tell Caleb to run for help when her hand shot up and grabbed his jacket with startling strength. Her eyes opened, gray, wild, terrified. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't call the police. They'll kill me." Her grip loosened. She went limp again. Raymond stared at the badge barely hanging from her chest, at his son who'd already seen too much death. Every instinct screamed to call for help. But another part of him, the part that remembered being handcuffed in front of his crew, being called a thief by men in uniforms just like this one, that part hesitated. He looked at Caleb. "Run to the cabin. Get the first aid kit and towels. Don't tell anyone." Raymond pressed his hands against the wound, felt her blood warm between his fingers, and wondered what kind of cop gets shot and begs you not to call cops. He lifted her and carried her toward the cabin as the last light died behind the trees. The cabin had 2 rooms. Raymond laid her on his bed and peeled away the torn uniform. The bullet had gone through the shoulder, missing bone but tearing muscle. He cleaned it with vodka, packed it with gauze, wrapped it tight. Her face was pale as old paper. A name tag hung crooked on her vest. Finch. He checked her pockets. No wallet, no phone, no ID. Just the badge and a torn piece of paper with coordinates in smudged ink. For 3 days, she burned with fever. Raymond kept her hydrated, changed bandages, watched her thrash through nightmares. On the 4th morning, he found her eyes open, tracking him with the wariness of a trapped animal. He set water on the bedside crate. "You're safe here, for now." She didn't speak, just stared. He explained what he'd found, what he'd done. When he finished, she said 4 words. "I can't trust anyone." Raymond nodded. "You trusted me enough to say don't call the cops. I didn't. But I need to know. Am I hiding someone innocent or making the biggest mistake of my life? She closed her eyes. When she opened them, there were tears. I don't know anymore. I thought I was doing the right thing. Now I'm just trying not to die. That evening, Raymond turned on the television. The local news led with a missing police officer, Officer Nora Finch, missing after a shootout with drug traffickers at the Riverside docks. Sheriff Bolton, a broad-shouldered man with a face like weathered granite, stood before cameras calling Nora a dedicated officer, a hero. Raymond watched her academy photo flash on screen. Younger, smiling, hopeful. Nothing like the hollow-eyed woman in his bed. He turned it off and walked back. Nora was awake, tears streaming down her temples. They're calling me a hero. That means they think I'm dead. Over the next week, Nora's strength returned in increments. She told him pieces late at night when Caleb was asleep. She'd been investigating a drug operation for months, following money trails that led to bank accounts that didn't add up. Someone inside the department was protecting the operation. Someone high up. She'd found proof, a ledger connecting shipments directly to someone in the sheriff's office. The night she planned to bring it to Internal Affairs, she got a call about a drug bust at the docks. When she arrived, the trap sprung. 3 men and 2 officers she'd worked with for years, all with guns aimed at her. They started firing. She took a bullet, returned fire, then ran and jumped into the river. The current carried her downstream, cold water filling her lungs, vision going dark. Then hands were pulling her up, and she was looking at a stranger and a little boy, and making a choice to trust them because there was no one else left. Raymond listened. Then, "You have proof? This ledger?" Nora's laugh was bitter. "Had. It's in my locker at the station. Might as well be on the moon." She looked at him. "Maybe I'm lying. Maybe I'm the dirty one. That's what they're probably saying." Raymond met her eyes. 5 years ago, I was accused of stealing tools from a construction site. They found equipment in my truck, planted by the foreman's nephew after I caught him using company materials for side jobs. No one believed me. I lost everything. My wife died 6 months later because we couldn't afford her medication. He stood. So no, I don't automatically trust the official story. But I don't automatically trust yours either. I'm just tired of people getting crushed by systems that protect themselves instead of the truth. 2 weeks after Raymond pulled her from the river, the news shifted. Officer Nora Finch was now wanted for questioning in connection with drug trafficking. New evidence suggested she'd been working with dealers. Sheriff Bolton appeared looking somber, talking about betrayal. They showed footage of her apartment being searched, mentioned cash found hidden in her closet. Nora watched with her jaw clenched. That's how they do it. Plant evidence, rewrite the narrative, turn the victim into the criminal. Never thought they'd do it to me. Caleb had been quiet through all of it. One afternoon, he approached Raymond at the workbench. "Dad, the lady. She's not bad." Raymond set down his wrench. "What makes you say that?" Caleb shrugged. "Bad people don't have nightmares about hurting people. She cries in her sleep and says sorry." That night, Raymond asked Nora about her father. She was silent so long he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, he was a cop too. Died when I was 12. Car accident on duty. Years later, I found out he'd been investigating corruption. The accident was never properly investigated. No witnesses, no footage. Just a single vehicle crash on a clear day. She touched the bandage under her shirt. I became a cop because I wanted to be like him. Turns out I am, just not the way I planned. Raymond sat beside her. "You think they killed him?" Nora turned to look at him. "I know they did. I just can't prove it. Same way I can't prove anything now." The next morning, Caleb was gone. Raymond woke to the cot empty and the front door open. Panic hit like cold water. He found him 40 minutes later sitting on the bank, holding something. "Caleb, what are you doing?" The boy didn't look up. "I wanted to find something to help her." He opened his hands. A police badge, tarnished and scratched. Nora's badge. It was stuck in the rocks. I saw it shining. Raymond took it carefully. The weight felt wrong. He examined it closer. The backing had been modified. Hollowed out. His hand shook as he worked it open. Inside was a USB drive sealed in a waterproof bag. Caleb's eyes went wide. "Is that important?" Raymond's throat was dry. "Yeah, buddy. I think it might be." They returned to the cabin where Nora was pacing anxiously. When she saw the badge, her knees buckled. Raymond caught her, placed the badge and USB in her hands. She stared like she was seeing ghosts. "I thought it was gone." She opened it, confirmed the USB. "This is everything. Recordings, documents, bank transfers. It's why they wanted me dead." She looked at Caleb with wonder. "You found this?" He nodded. Nora's eyes filled with tears. "You're braver than most adults I know." Then to Raymond, "We need to get this to someone trustworthy, but I don't know who that is anymore." That evening they tried to access the USB. The files were encrypted, password protected. Nora tried combinations. Nothing worked. Frustration mounted. I was so careful. Made the password something I'd never forget. Raymond watched her spiral. "What were you thinking about when you hit it?" Nora went still. "My father. This whole investigation was for him." Raymond leaned forward. "What did he call you?" She looked confused. "What?" "Fathers have nicknames. What was his?" Nora's face changed. "Bright Star. He called me his bright star because I was born during a meteor shower." She typed, "U812 Bright Star." The date he died, and the nickname. The files unlocked. She sobbed once before opening the first folder. Inside were photographs of ledgers, bank statements, recorded calls, surveillance footage. Names Raymond didn't recognize, and two he did. Garrett Bolton, the deputy chief, and Vincent Caruso, a businessman. The recordings were damning. In one audio file, Garrett's voice was clear. "Finch needs to be handled, permanently." They sat in silence. This was conspiracy, attempted murder, years of systematic crime protected by badges. Nora's hands clenched. Garrett Bolton, Sheriff Bolton's younger brother. The sheriff worships him. Raymond thought about the press conferences. Does the sheriff know? Nora shook her head. He's a good cop, rigid, honest. Garrett probably saw an opportunity, knowing his brother would never suspect him. She looked at Raymond. "We have to take this to the sheriff directly, but it's risky." Raymond thought about Caleb, about running versus fighting. "What's the alternative? Hide forever?" Nora met his eyes. "The alternative is I disappear, and you keep living small and invisible." Raymond looked at his son. "Caleb, what do you think? Should we help Officer Finch?" The boy didn't hesitate. "Mom used to say doing the right thing is hard. I think this is hard. So we should do it." Raymond made the call the next morning from a payphone, said he had information about Officer Finch. The dispatcher tried to take details, but Raymond said he'd only talk to the sheriff in person, in a public place. When Sheriff Bolton called back, Raymond identified himself. "I have Officer Finch with me. She's alive, she's safe, and she has evidence you need to see." The meeting was set for sunset at the public library. Bolton came alone. When he saw them, Nora lowered her hood. "Jesus Christ," he breathed. "Finch." Nora's voice was steady. "I know what they think. I know what your brother told you. But it's a lie, and I can prove it." She pulled out the USB, explained briefly. Bolton's face cycled through disbelief, anger, grief. "Garrett, you're telling me Garrett is running drugs through my department?" They moved to a private study room. For 40 minutes, Sheriff Bolton watched and listened, as his brother's voice laid out crimes in casual detail, orders to move product, instructions to intimidate witnesses, the command to eliminate Nora Finch. When it finished, Bolton's hands were shaking. I need to bring him in, tonight. Nora leaned forward. He has people loyal to him. You need to be smart. Bolton nodded slowly. I'll pull together officers I trust, hit his house and office simultaneously. He looked at Nora. I'm sorry for not seeing it, for not protecting you. Nora's jaw tightened. Protect me now. But Garrett Bolton had surveillance on his brother. As Sheriff Bolton left the library and made calls, Garrett was already moving. 30 minutes later, as Raymond drove Nora and Caleb back, a black SUV rammed them from behind. The truck spun, slammed into a ditch. Raymond's head cracked against the steering wheel, blood in his eyes, Caleb crying, Nora already pulling her service pistol. The SUV doors opened. 3 men emerged, Vince Caruso, a deputy, and Garrett Bolton himself. Garrett walked forward with casual confidence. Officer Finch, you've been persistent, but problems get solved. His eyes flicked to Raymond and Caleb. Collateral damage. The truck went off the road. All 3 died. Tragic. Nora leveled her gun. You're finished. Your brother knows everything. Garrett smiled. My brother is sentimental. He'll hesitate. He raised his weapon. Drop the gun, or I shoot the kid first. Raymond felt Caleb trembling behind him. He'd spent 5 years being small, invisible, the man who survived by not making waves. But Iris hadn't married that man. Caleb still believed his father could be brave. Raymond stepped in front of them both, arms spread. You'll have to go through me first. His voice didn't shake. Garrett's smile vanished. Stupid choice. But before he could fire, headlights flooded the scene. 3 cruisers roaring up, sirens blaring. Sheriff Bolton emerged with a shotgun. Garrett Bolton, you're under arrest. Drop your weapons. The standoff lasted seconds. Caruso and the deputy dropped their guns. But Garrett's face twisted with animal fury. He swung his gun toward his brother. You're choosing her over me? Over blood? Bolton's shotgun never wavered. I'm choosing the law over a criminal. Garrett fired, a warning shot that went wide. Last chance, Garrett. For a moment, it seemed like Garrett might surrender. Then he jerked the gun back toward Nora. Nora fired first. Center mass. Garrett went down. Bolton made a sound between a shout and a sob, ran forward as deputies swarmed in. But Garrett's eyes found his brother's, held them, then went vacant. The next hour was chaos. Ambulances, crime scene tape, questions repeated endlessly. Caleb stayed pressed against Raymond's side. Nora gave her statement with flat professionalism. Sheriff Bolton stood apart, staring at nothing, looking decades older. When initial statements were done, he approached them. I'm sorry. For all of it. For not seeing what he was. Nora's voice was gentle. He was your brother. You're allowed to mourn him. Bolton's face crumpled briefly before the sheriff's mask reassembled. He made his choices. I made mine. The investigation that followed dismantled Garrett's network. 8 officers arrested, 14 civilians charged, millions seized. Nora was exonerated publicly, hailed as a hero. They offered commendations, promotions. She declined them all. Stood before cameras once, thanked Raymond Blake for saving her life, then walked away. The attention shifted to Raymond. Wasn't he himself falsely accused years ago? The town council issued a formal apology, offered $50,000 compensation. He took it without ceremony, put most in trust for Caleb, used the rest to fix the cabin and buy proper tools. But the money didn't erase the past. What changed was quieter. The way people looked at him in town, the way Caleb walked taller, knowing his father had stood up when it counted. 3 months after that night, Nora showed up at the cabin. Not in uniform. Jeans, sweater, hair loose. She looked younger, less haunted. They sat on the porch while Caleb showed her the go-kart Raymond had built. Nora watched and said, "I quit the force, officially retired." Raymond wasn't surprised. "What will you do?" She smiled. "Private investigation, helping people who can't trust the system." She pulled out her badge, polished now. "I want Caleb to have this." Raymond took it. "He's 8. Nora nodded. "Someday he'll wonder if that night mattered. This badge represents everyone who tried to do the right thing. I want him to have it as a reminder that it's always worth doing." Raymond called Caleb over. Nora crouched to his level. "This is for you. For being brave. For finding what I lost." Caleb held it carefully. "I won't lose it. I'll keep it forever." Spring came early, turning the river from black to blue. Raymond and Caleb returned to fishing on weekends, and sometimes Nora joined them, not as Officer Finch, just as Nora. They didn't talk much about that night. The scars said enough. They fished in comfortable silence, and when they caught something, they threw it back. One afternoon, Caleb asked, "Dad, if you found her today instead of back then, would you still help her?" Raymond thought about it honestly. "I don't know. I was pretty broken back then, pretty scared." He looked at his son. "What do you think? Would you want me to?" Caleb didn't hesitate. "Yes, because Mom wouldn't want us to be the kind of people who walk away when someone's drowning." Raymond felt something crack open in his chest. "You're right. Guess we're doing it right then." Christmas came, and Nora arrived with news. She'd been offered a position consulting for the FBI's Public Corruption Unit. It meant relocating to D.C. Caleb's face fell. "You're leaving?" Nora crouched to his level. "Not forever, and not far in my heart. But yes, physically, I'll be in another city." She pulled him into a hug. "Distance doesn't change how much people matter. You and your dad, you're my family. Real family. Nothing changes that." That night, after Caleb was asleep, Raymond and Nora sat by the fireplace. "I keep thinking about that night," Nora said. "All the tiny decisions that led to that moment. If you'd gone fishing earlier or later. If Caleb hadn't found the badge. All these chances we took without knowing." Raymond nodded. "Iris used to say life is a series of small choices that add up to one big story." Nora turned to him. "Who did you become, Raymond? After everything?" He thought honestly. "Someone smaller at first, scared, then angry, then numb. And then you showed up in my river, and suddenly I had to choose, stay small or grow big enough to help. I'm still becoming, but I'm not scared anymore." Nora smiled. "You taught me to trust again. That good people exist even in broken systems." She took his hand. "Thank you for not leaving me in the water." Raymond squeezed back. "Thank you for giving me a reason to wade in." In March, they flew to Washington to visit Nora. Caleb pressed his face against the airplane window, marveling at clouds. Nora met them at the airport in a professional pantsuit, but dropped everything to hug Caleb. They spent days exploring museums and monuments. But the best day was when Nora drove them to a small lake, and they fished together just like old times. No agenda, just 3 people who'd survived something terrible and chosen to build something good from the wreckage. On the flight home, Caleb fell asleep against Raymond's shoulder. Raymond watched the clouds and thought about Iris, what she'd think of the man he'd become. She'd be proud, he decided. Proud that loss hadn't made them cruel, only careful, and eventually, brave. Summer arrived. Raymond's workshop began filling with projects. Word had spread about the furniture he used to build: a dining table, a bookshelf, a rocking chair for old Mrs. Chen, who'd crossed the street to avoid him for 5 years, but now smiled and waved. Work was meditation. Work was proof his hands could create, instead of just repair. Nora called every few weeks, updating them on cases. She sent postcards to Caleb, always with the same closing: "Stay brave. Keep fishing." The postcards went up on his wall, a map of someone else's journey that made their small life feel connected to the world. In August, Nora returned for Caleb's 10th birthday. She brought a cake, and when she emerged with it while everyone sang, Caleb's face, pure joy, made Raymond's chest ache with gratitude. After the guests left, Nora found Raymond on the porch. "He's a great kid. You're doing an amazing job." Raymond felt the weight of single parenting. "Most days I feel like I'm faking it," Nora laughed. "That's called being a parent." She looked at the river. "Sometimes I dream I'm back in the water, sinking, cold. Then I feel hands pulling me up, and I remember that the worst night of my life led to the best people I know." Raymond understood. "Iris used to say we're not supposed to carry things alone. That's what hands are for, pulling each other up." Fall returned, painting the woods in gold and red. Caleb started 3rd grade with new confidence, made friends, joined science club. Raymond hired a part-time assistant, a young man who'd also been wrongfully accused. They worked side by side, and Raymond found himself mentoring, passing on not just carpentry, but philosophy about honest work and quality. In November, Raymond received a call from the State Attorney General's office. His case had become part of a larger pattern investigation. 8 other men the same foreman had framed. He was entitled to additional compensation, to formal exoneration. When he hung up, his hands were shaking. He called Nora. She answered immediately. "They called you." Raymond heard the knowing in her voice. "How did you know?" Nora's voice was gentle. "I made some calls. Your case deserved another look." Raymond sat heavily. "You didn't have to." Nora's reply was firm. "Yes, I did. You saved my life. The least I could do was help clear your name." The exoneration came through in December, a formal document declaring Raymond Blake innocent, victim of deliberate fraud. The construction company settled for $200,000. The newspaper ran a front-page story. Raymond read it once, filed it away, and went back to work. The money went into Caleb's college fund and donations to help wrongfully accused individuals. He didn't need vindication from strangers. He'd found it in his son's face, in Nora's trust, in the satisfaction of building things that would outlast him. Christmas Eve, Nora arrived and announced she'd met someone, Adrian, a civil rights attorney. Over dinner, she introduced her. "We've been together 3 months. She's important to me." Caleb, with 9-year-old bluntness, said, "Are you girlfriends?" Nora laughed. "Yes." Caleb considered this. "Cool. Does she fish?" Adrian grinned. "I'm learning." One evening after Caleb and Adrian had gone inside, Raymond and Nora sat on the dock. "You seem happy," Raymond said. Nora nodded. "I am. Turns out surviving doesn't have to mean just existing. You can actually live." They sat watching the water catch light. Finally, Nora said, "I think about all the universes where you don't stop, where you see me and think, not my problem. In those universes, I die. Maybe Garrett's network keeps running. Maybe other people get hurt." She turned to Raymond. "Thank you for making me worth the risk." Raymond's voice was quiet. "You made yourself worth it. I just gave you time to prove it." He paused. "Besides, you reminded me I could still be the man Iris married, the one who doesn't walk past people drowning." As fall approached again, 2 years since that October night, Raymond returned to the river with Caleb. They cast their lines into water that had once carried death and now just carried fish and the promise of seasons that would keep turning. Caleb, older and wiser now, said, "Dad, do you think we'll always come here?" Raymond looked at the place where he'd pulled Nora from the water. "This spot will always be important. Some places mark you. They become part of your story, Caleb nodded. Like battle scars. Raymond smiled. Exactly like that. They fished until sunset. When they packed up, Caleb said, "I'm glad you saved her, even though it was scary." Raymond knelt to his son's level, saw Iris in the boy's eyes, saw the person Caleb was becoming. "Me too, buddy. Me too." That night, after Caleb was asleep, Raymond stood on the porch, looking at stars Iris had loved. He thought about who he'd become, a father who showed his son that doing the right thing mattered more than being safe, a carpenter who built beautiful things from broken wood. A friend who understood that chosen family could be stronger than family you lose. A man who'd learned that being destroyed wasn't the same as being finished, that you could be shattered and still put yourself back together into something new, something that helped others survive their own shattering. The wind moved through the trees with the sound of time passing. Raymond Blake had once believed the world was designed to crush people like him. Now he believed something different, that the world was full of moments where you chose to wade into cold water or walk away. That sometimes the most important thing you could do was see someone drowning and decide they were worth saving. He went inside, checked on Caleb, and crawled into bed. Tomorrow he'd wake up and build furniture, make breakfast and pack lunch and drive Caleb to school. Answer calls and sand wood and live a small, quiet life that wouldn't make headlines. But it would be his. Honest and hard-won and built from the wreckage of what he'd lost into something new. Something good. Sometimes that was enough. Sometimes enough was everything. And as Raymond drifted toward sleep, he thought he heard Iris's voice on the wind. "I'm proud of you." This time, finally, he believed her.